Hi guys, welcome back to Creative Tap. I'm now going to show you part 2 of our interview with Manooj Manoharan from Madlux VFX. If you haven't seen part 1, link in the description below. If you want to check out Manooj's channel, which is full of a great resource for nuke stuff, the link will be down below as well. So let's dive on in. Awesome. So next question for you is, and this will help my students. I think this question came from one of my students as well. What would you say are the top 5 skills or traits for any new artist joining the industry? Now, this could be software, or it could be like interpersonal skills, like community, I don't know, teamwork or something.
Yeah, actually, better than I explain all those habits or all those skills. I have made a separate video on not 5 skills. According to me, there should be 11 skills you should follow, or 11 habits you should follow to excel in your career. So I have made a detailed video on that. So I will add that in the card here, and you can go and watch that too. So basically, all these skills are like, it's general skills. You should follow all these skills. Like I cannot tell you like this you follow this for your career. I'm not telling like that. These all are the general skills which I found, which I followed in my career. So I will add that video here so that you can check it there, so that you will get a detailed description of all those habits which is needed for excelling in your career. So is that fine?
Yeah, we'll do that. That's great.
So that's it. So we will move to the next question from my side. Okay, some of the website for students and professionals with news and articles which you should which you follows regularly, or which you would like to suggest.
Yeah, great. So obviously, apart from news and articles, Madlux VFX YouTube channel, Creative Tap YouTube channel, they're great. I think my homepage actually is FX Guide. It's a sort of almost like a sister company, or it's part of FX PhD. But FX Guide, that's really good. It's my homepage. So another one would be Art of VFX. They have some. They do more kind of like breakdowns, but they have some great stuff up there. VFX Express is one which I've only stumbled on lately. Again, it's a bit more, it's more kind of breakdowns on there, but you know, adding that as an extra link in there, even though I've only discovered it, well, I only started using it in the past couple of months, but it's another good one. I would never shy away from that. Those are I've got 3, those are 3 sort of websites that I've got, but I've got some other pointers as well. Definitely Twitter. If you're on Twitter, first of all, if you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. And if you're on Twitter, just following a few hashtags like VFX, VFX News. We know that Unreal and virtual production, they're trending, they're getting bigger. So follow those hashtags, and you'll see an article linked, not necessarily from FX Guide or Art of VFX. You'll see an article linked from somewhere, and you think, oh wow, that was a really good article, and you may find more on there. So I think Twitter is a great place where artists share loads of stuff. The other thing I would say is, I say this to all my students, do not shy away from books. Books are amazing tools. Now, I've probably got about 30 odd visual effects books in the other room. It's probably worth more than everything else in that room. But books are great. The one problem with books is that I've got the visual effects, I don't know if you know, it's a big beast of a book, the Visual Effects Society book. I think it's either the 2nd edition or the 3rd edition I ordered about a month ago. I don't actually know where it is. But the problem with books is they're not as up to date. You know, if something interesting happens, you can publish an article like that. Books are great, but they're not as up to date. But I definitely say don't shy away from them. Steve Wright's book, Compositing for Film and Video or something. Steve Wright's compositing book, I learned so much from that. In fact, the stuff I've learned from that, I'm actually going to be doing some tutorials on them in the future. Like, there was a build your own kind of like Kia in there. It's amazing. So I'd say don't shy away from books, but also there's a great magazine out there as well. Cinefx magazine. I don't have any copies around me, but Cinefx magazine, really great. If you love the industry, if you want to know what's going on, use those websites. Don't shy away from the books, and Cinefx magazine is a great resource as well.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. So I'll ask you your next question now. Very similar to what I've just asked, what I've just answered. Sorry. So, are there any books, films, or any other resources you would encourage new artists? Don't necessarily have to be new artists, but are there any books, films, or any other resources you would encourage artists to read/watch?
Yep. I mean, almost all of the things which I used to follow, you already explained in your answer. So it's all about like, generally I have the view like, most of the books which is pretty old gives the basics. They don't cover up the recent updates or the, I mean, some of the techniques which is there in that book is already became a tool or it's easy to access now. So if you want to know more about the basics kind of things like basics of camera and basics of, I mean, we can see all of these things. I personally I didn't read any books, so I'm sorry for that. I didn't read any books right now because of the lack of time maybe, but I read a lot of articles which is almost matching. I mean, the knowledge which I get from all those articles, maybe I will get that knowledge from book also. So you can spend time watching, I mean, reading articles or blog posts in internet. So if you have more time on, if you are really passionate to read more books, there are a lot of books like John suggested, like Steve Wright's book is there, and a lot of books. I even have a video for that also. I will pin that here. So so generally that is my view about reading books. I have never read a book related to compositing or and all this, but I've read many articles in FX Guide, in Art of VFX, and a lot of websites which I follows, and also I watches a lot of tutorials and a lot of updates from, I mean, related to visual effects and animation. There is a video specially I made, like the channel which I follows. I have made this video almost 1 year back. So you can't see creative tab in that video. As I told, I found out creative tab 6 months back. So you can also make a video, John. Like you can also make a video like which all are the channels you follows in YouTube. So there are a lot of contents in YouTube. Like for me personally, I believe that if you follow those tutorials and all those updates in these YouTube channels, and also if you could read some of the articles which is there in animation network, some animation world network, AWN, I think so. One website is there, and also FX Guide is there, and one more website is there, beforeandafters.com. So that guy is also doing absolutely brilliant job by posting a lot of articles related to the new technologies and all those kind of things. So I suggest, if you have time, go for reading books, which I mean, I will add a link of the books which you could read, which you should read. And also the resources, like there are a lot of blogs and a lot of articles on those websites which we mentioned earlier. You can go and read all those things, and there are a lot of YouTube channels which provide free tutorials, so you can watch that also to, I mean, to get information and updates about the industry. So that's it.
Excellent. Cheers for that. That was great.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move to the next question. Okay. What are the future technological changes we can expect, or how much work can be automated by AI? As you already told, like you are going to make some videos or tutorials on artificial intelligence and all those tools developed by artificial intelligence. So I mean, I really want to know, like, according to you, what are the recent technological changes happened in the industry? Like, I heard there is a tool for automatic roto, that is Rotobot, which is developed by one of the, I mean, I don't remember his name, like Simon, I guess so. I have made, there is a huge panic happened in India when that tool got released, because
Really?
because there are a lot of jobs related to roto and all those things. So suddenly one automated tool released, and all those hype happened in LinkedIn and YouTube and all, generally internet. So people got panicked, and I made a video specifically explaining what that tool does, and what could be the I mean, larger extent that tool can be performed. So that could I mean, literally it would have cleared some of the doubts and all those panic in those people. So I just want to know, like, you, what is your view about that?
So, do we to if I talk you through the changes that I expect will happen? Is that what you kind of want me to do with AI? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely, kind of like we were talking a bit about earlier, I definitely see a rise in the sort of real-time rendering. That's a
Mm-hmm.
future technological change I think we're going to see. I would like to say that there will be a rise in the use of photogrammetry.
Mm-hmm.
However, I haven't seen that pick up as much as I thought it would, so I was wrong there. But I do think sort of scanning of environments with like a LiDAR system, that I do think will pick up. Now, looking at the kind of AI thing, the machine learning side, honestly, deepfakes, right, are getting so ridiculously good, so ridiculously close that I think they're going to become very, very useful in the future. That's my opinion. You only need to look at stuff like Snapchat or FaceApp. I don't know if you knew
Yeah, yeah,
FaceApp. It was like you take a
yeah.
photo of yourself in it. Yeah, that did it so well, like that. And I think that FaceApp was based off machine learning. I think because it was getting kind of better and better, and I spent hours trying to trick it. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a good video by Corridor Digital where they're trying to trick it as well. I may link that below.
Yeah, we will add that in the description.
Yeah, but I reckon, give it a year, that FaceApp thing will probably end up going from a photo to a video, kind of like Snapchat is. I mean, you only have to look at that stuff and realize that it's getting there. So, I 100% think, in terms of AI and machine learning, deepfakes are gonna knock it out the park, and I think it won't be long until they do. I mean, in all honesty, the visual effects landscape is going to look more different as time goes on. As technology continues to advance, which it will, content creation methods and workflows are going to change. And I think out of all the industries like healthcare, education, loads of industries, I think visual effects is going to be one of the ones that changes probably the most. More technology comes out, techniques of content creation are going to change, and we got to be ready for that. So I don't think artists will be made null. I think artists' roles will change, but I don't think AI will ever completely replace us. But I do think that the role of an artist will change as AI can do more and more. Maybe the role of an artist maintains the AI algorithms or whatever, or builds the tools. I don't think we'll be made null because, like I said earlier, my opinion is I don't think AI will ever be able to rival us in terms of creativity. However, Nvidia released it a while ago. Released a it's almost I think it's machine learning. It's like you get a paintbrush and you paint like this 200 by 200 pixel square. You get a brush which is called a tree brush, and you just draw a line, and then you draw some lines for the grass, and there's a waterfall brush, and it's just like a blue brush. You just draw a
Yeah,
line
yeah,
down.
yeah. I
It
remember that.
gen it generates an environment, and it does it really well. Can
Yeah.
they have can AI and machine learning, can they have creative decision making? A computer scientist would probably be able to give me a really good answer to that. But
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think that the creative decision making will be able to rival us. So I don't see threat in there, but I do think in 10 years' time the role of an artist will possibly be quite different. But yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah. So we can generally advise everyone is like, don't be lazy, learn more and more
Yeah.
things, more and more. You have to upgrade yourself day by day basis maybe. So it's all about whoever is getting upgraded, they can survive in the industry. Am I right?
Yeah, definitely. It's an industry where you have to be willing to learn.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Yep.
So I'll ask you
Can I?
another question now. I think this is another one which came from one of my
Okay.
students. What are your top 5 tips? It's quite a vague question, but what are your top 5 tips for pulling off a solid composite? So let's say you were reviewing an artist's shot. What are the
Mhm.
top 5 things you need in there to make it work?
Yeah, yep. So mostly, I have experience on 2D kind of compositing, so I can't tell much detailed things about CG compositing and all those
Hmm.
things. And so basic things which I can tell you, like if I'm checking a shot, if I'm planning a shot to do, is like, first of all, I have to plan the shot. Okay, there are a lot of what kind of works is there in the shot, and which is the part of the shot which I have to give more attention to that. So basically we can split up, like, if you excel in these all these things, you can achieve results much faster and much precise. So I can tell, like, you should have a very detailed knowledge of roto and paint. So if you have roto paint knowledge, your 50% of compositing skill, I mean, you achieved almost 50% of the compositing skills, because roto and paint is like, we have to understand the layer by layer concepts and why we are doing this roto. And in paint, like, we are removing something, means we are understanding what is layer by layer concept. So what is compositing is like, we are arranging elements and all those things layer by layer and making a final shot or final composite. So roto paint is a knowledge, is a must knowledge you should have. And also the second thing is like color grading or color matching. We can tell, like, there are a lot of tools in Nuke which you can make use of for matching the color and all those of grading kind of works. And there are a lot of tutorials in internet. I mean, there are a lot of tools in Nuke, and there are a lot of gizmos also for matching color precisely. You can use grade node, you can use color CC, I mean color correct node, you can use curve tool for matching the color, and there are a lot of tools. I mean, there are a lot of gizmos also. So first one is rotopaint, second one is color grading, and the third one is like tracking knowledge. So you don't have to be a match mover to become a compositor, but you should have a decent knowledge about point tracking, basic planar tracking, as well as the 3D tracking inside Nuke, at least inside Nuke. There are a lot of softwares like basic 3D tracking packages like Bojo. I have knowledge about Bojo, so like I have made tutorials based on that also. Like, we can track in Bojo and we can export 2D tracks from Bojo to Nuke or Silhouette or Mocha, or I mean Mocha, Silhouette and Nuke. So basically this is a software which I use predominantly, like Nuke, Silhouette, Mocha. So tracking knowledge is a must. And the next thing is like edge fix techniques. So we are compositing some elements behind some character or anything. So we are creating a mat for those FG thing or FG element, and later we are adding that FG element back to the composite. So at that time we generally will have a lot of edge related issues. So we should have a detailed knowledge of those edge fixing techniques. So even we have a lot of gizmos for edge fixing, but you should have a general knowledge about what edge does there, how we can fix those black and white edges in the composite, so to make it more blended into the composite. So we should have those general knowledge about edge fix related techniques. And finally I could tell you, like, you should have a decent knowledge about grain. So I mean, all these movies, all these footages which we have grain over that, and finally we have to match the grain. It depends on the department to department. Some paint departments, some companies have paint departments which generally they don't work in the grain plate. So it's all depend upon companies to companies, but as an artist you should have a decent update or a decent knowledge about grain matching and all those kind of knowledge related to grain. So these all are my 5 tips which I could give to an artist who wants to enter into or to become to become excel in their work in a 2D compositing point of view.
Great, awesome. Thank you for that. That was really good.
Okay, so let's move to the next question. So is there any movie, like, what is your favorite movie with some stunning visual effects?
Right, I've got a few. Where do I start? I'll start off by explaining But actually, I'm a huge fan of invisible visual effects and the kind of
Yeah.
stuff. This obviously, for those people out there who are a bit confused, what I mean by that is I really like looking at sort of periodic dramas which were set, or films which were set, I don't know, in the 1800s, because what I love is I love looking at the breakdowns of them more than anything, because if you're shooting something like Downton Abbey, which is I think it's a very British program, but if you're shooting something which was set in the 1800s, you can't have a bus stop, you can't have a letterbox, you can't have road marking, double yellow lines. So I love seeing this stuff which has got, like, obviously if you watch a Michael Bay film like Transformers, it's explosion after explosion. People know that that's visual effects, or they may not know what it's called, but they know it's not real. What I love to see is where you'd see a shot and you just think, it's Henry VIII walking down a road, for example, but that would have been a road with cars in, which they had to remove, letterboxes, bus stops, lampposts. That whole, basically, you're like, clean up kind of jobs. I love that. I find it fascinating, because the one thing that does is it's using visual effects to drive and create a narrative. Whereas when you look at, I'm a massive fan of Avengers. I love Marvel. Sometimes I am looking at it thinking, all of this kind of CGI, these lasers and all this stuff, is it that necessary? Because sometimes I find over the top kind of visual effects distracts the viewer from the narrative. So I really love the invisible stuff. But I also love, like I said, I have no problem with Marvel. I love Marvel. I love the lasers, the explosions, all that stuff. But one particular film I'm a huge fan of is Titanic. So I know it's a bit of a not really a manly film. And I know a lot of it was done with visuals, but even for the time, I think it was 96 that was out, even for the time, it was a huge visual effects feat, regardless of whether 80% of the boat shots, or ship, I should say, shots were miniatures, but it was just, for the time, it was a huge feat, such a long film with so many technical kind of requirements. So that's what I love. Another thing that I really enjoyed, I don't know if you've seen it, the Doctor Who 50th anniversary. That, right, the 3D sort of paintings, the sort of I don't know if you've seen it, but the 3D paintings in that was just so impressive. And I know an artist, she worked on it quite heavily. It was the only thing she did for about 4 months, I think. But no, the Doctor Who, I think Doctor Who as a whole, it's got some questionable episodes for visual effects, and it's also got some killer ones. The 50th anniversary knocked it out of the park. There's a couple others which I'll mention. I know you only asked for one, but there's one called, a film which I worked on, shameless shout out, it's called The Call Up. It's very, very similar. It came out before Ready Player One, but it's very similar to Ready Player One. Okay. It was almost probably like the test film for Ready Player One, but it's on Netflix, so it did well. The reason I like that one is because visual effects was needed to drive the narrative. You couldn't have visual effects not in the film, if you get me. But I think the only reason it's one of my favorites is because knowing we had a team of about 6 or 7 artists to make a very CG heavy film, and to know that, it's a personal favorite for me, because to know that we only had 6 or 7 working on us, doing, I did most of the roto, but then I jumped on and I helped with the compositing, I did the match moving. We were just all hopping around, and it was insane. To know how polished that film came out, it was really kind of good to see that. Another one, I will get to the end of the question, don't worry, but another one is The Martian, is probably a favourite of mine. Yeah. What I like about it is, obviously that's another one which needs visual effects to drive the narrative. And the environment design wasn't over the top. In fact, it was perfect. Like, I can't say that as gospel truth, because I'll be honest, I haven't been to Mars, but it was not over the top. It was just bang on, and it just felt right, so right. Even like the spaceship shots. Yeah, okay, you can start to question. It was like something out of Interstellar, or Jupiter Ascending. It was a huge, thing. And yes, you can question that, but to be honest, it was really good. So those are probably my favourites. Some honourable mentions, I would say Gravity. I mean, that knocks it out of the park. I mean, the whole, like, the interactive lighting when she was sort of spinning through space, that's a sort of, I don't know if you'd call that a virtual set, but there was like this box being kind of like swung around. I can't remember the actress's name, but that's an honourable mention. Blade Runner 2049, another honourable mention, and Interstellar. How can you not mention Interstellar with the sort of black hole? They wrote papers and they discovered stuff about black holes in their R&D, in their research into how they would look like. So yeah, those are my favourites.
I could share like a few points to that. Like when I was a child, like I watched Titanic, and I never, like, when I understood there is visual effects, that time only I got to know, okay, they have done visual effects for Titanic. That much realistic that movie was. As a child or as a person who don't know what is visual effects, that movie looks so realistic. And I was so fascinated by a movie in my early childhood, that is the Godzilla.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, that movie was so realistic, and I was even thinking like, oh, is it like whenever I see a huge bridge or something like that, I always have that memory like, okay, something is gonna come out of that sea. So that much huge impact all those movies have on us because of the single term visual effects. So I mean, that point which you made clear, that is exactly the thing. Like visual effects is should be used for a story narration. I mean,
100%,
we
yeah.
should not make a story for conveying visual effects or doing visual effects. We should not make a story. A story should be properly conveyed by using visual effects and special effects and all those kind of techniques. That's a
Yeah.
success.
I completely agree, and I think Hollywood is kind of just trying to compete to each other. Oh, we're going to set a film in space because we're going to have 10 more explosions than you did. But yeah.
Yeah. So you can ask like.
Yeah, okay. So in the previous question you answered me on your top 5 tips for pulling off a solid comp, you mentioned about grain, and something which my students have been asking. What is your grain matching workflow?
Okay, so like I can't explain technically about the nodes which I use and all, but I'll just give you a general idea of like what all are the methods which I follow for matching the grain. So the first method is like input grain. So it's just taking the input from, I mean, the grain from the input and adding into the output. So there is a general workflow, like we have to minus the grain after blurring the footage itself, and you can add that grain to the final composite using merge plus operation in the merge node. So that is input grain, and the second one is grain advanced. That is a gizmo. I guess it is coming from Spin VFX. So that is a beautiful gizmo. We can simply replace our native grain node, that is the Kotak grain node in new. We can replace that with grain advanced. So that is a decent gizmo which we can match grain for like not kind of detailed grain task and all. So these two are for general grain. Like we don't have to like so much completely change the grain pattern and everything. Like you can choose input grain if you have a marker removal kind of shot, and if you can choose a grain advance if you have a small kind of this I mean removal task or anything which is pretty small compared to, like if you have a detailed removal task and the scope is big, you should go for furnace grain and scanned grain. And furnace grain is a plugin, like I mean it's a default node in Nuke X, furnace regrain, and scanned grain also is a default node in Nuke. You can I have made a grain matching workflow for scanned grain in my YouTube channel. You can check that here. I'll add that card here. And also I mean now there is a gizmo in market like visual effects, dash grain. So I don't I didn't use that much dash grain, but I heard from my colleagues and the people who have used. I have seen many videos in YouTube dash grain is pretty impressive, and if you learned to use dash grain efficiently, it will help you to match grain very easily. So these all are the basic workflows or basic techniques which I use to grain match the grain in the footage.
Great.
Yeah.
That's really good. I picked up a few things there myself. I'm gonna have to go and have a look at these gizmos.
Okay, cool.
That's really useful.
Okay, so let's move into the next question. What is your favorite software in visual effects and animation for you?
So, I mean, I've got to say Nuke, because nothing in terms of compositing, in my eyes, rivals Nuke, and I think people will be very surprised if I said After Effects or for compositing, but no, Nuke is a strong one, definitely up there. Synthize is one which is probably going to cause some controversy, but I used to do quite a lot of match moving, and I've used PF Track. Honestly, Synthize is so ridiculously underrated, and it's so cheap as well. Even I could afford my own license of Synthize, not just the one in the studio.
Okay.
I know London use 3D Equalizer quite a lot, and obviously Buju. I don't know if people still use Buju. I haven't heard of it being used that much, but yeah. So I know as far as I'm concerned, PF Track and 3D Equalizer are the sort of the big ones. Synthize, though, I use that. I trained up in it on FX PhD, and I'll be honest, I haven't had. I'd be lying if I said I haven't had any problems with it. I've had problems with it because the shots have been difficult to track, and I think I would have had those problems in any other software. But not once have I completely failed to get a really good match move out of Synthize. It's compatible with Maya. It's compatible on export to Nuke. It is hands down one of my Nuke's my favourite, but Synthize it's a very very close second. The only problem I have with Synthize, it does look like Windows 95 when you open it. But apart from the user interface not being pretty, yeah, Synthize and Nuke 100%.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Okay.
So this is my final question for you, Manooj. So
Okay.
before I ask the final question, thank you for all the questions you've answered today. What is your best and worst experience of industry? So not specific to a company, but just industry as a whole. What would you say is your best and worst experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I have to sum up all my experience in that. So it's like the first point which I can tell is like from my childhood, like everyone watches movies, and some people are more passionate to filmmaking. Some people are more passionate to just watch the movie, to experience the movie. So we are generally fortunate to like part of the movie industry, like we
Hmm.
are working on movies which we used to watch from our childhood stuff, like Jurassic World, all those kind of Jurassic movies we
Hmm.
used to watch in our childhood. But later in my life I got experience in working that movie in the later parts. So I'm very proud like to tell like I'm part of the movie industry. And the second one which I could tell is like we are seeing the footage, like what is the raw footage which the filmmakers shot for that specific movie, and we are the people who makes those outputs. So we are seeing that growth from like the raw footage to a final composite. So that, we can see that changes. So I'm really fascinated to see those changes happening, like stage by stage after match move, those kind of roto paint task and final compositing, lighting, effects, and all those things. We are seeing everything. So that's a huge experience for a lifetime. And I can tell you like if I want to make a film or at least a short movie, I know the filmmaking techniques and all those backlog which is happening in making a film. So it helps me to make a film if I have a story, or if at least I can do a 2D animation or anything. Like we can do anything with the information we gained from this industry. So that's a big thing which I gained from this industry personally. And the last thing which I can tell about the pro is like it's like we are daily we are able to meet, like we met now through a YouTube medium. We met now and we are speaking generally about the career, about the industry, and about the technologies and everything. We are meeting new people daily. We can meet, if you decided, you can meet a lot of people daily, who have different career, different path of success, different motivations and everything. Internet is a medium for that. You can use LinkedIn, you can use YouTube, you can use Facebook, and a lot of mediums for that. So we can meet a lot of, like I can meet a director through LinkedIn, I can meet a visual effects supervisor through LinkedIn. So it's like everybody have their own preferences. So all those things which I consider as the pros as an artist who works in visual effects industry, visual effects and animation industry. And also some of the cons which I could tell is like timing is a con. Like we as an industry works like some people will work almost 24 hours, I can tell. So it's not good for a family or work life balance, and personally your health will also get affected by those kind of work style. So that is a con which I find in the industry, and it all can change according to your personal decisions or personal explorations. If you started learning more and more techniques and more kind of tutorials in YouTube or any professional websites, it helps to improve your workflow and your timing of the work. So this I've considered as a con. And also I can tell like as we are working in a movie, okay, so if I'm working in this specific movie and if I'm gonna watch that movie in theater, I can't experience that movie much because I have known like, okay, they have shot this movie like this and they're showing it like this. Even though I worked in that movie and I made that movie through visual effects, so generally I can't enjoy that movie in theater. I don't know the same thing which will happen to you also, but generally, if I worked in a movie and if I see that movie, I can't enjoy that movie that much. I mean, for example, I worked in San Andreas and I'm seeing that movie in theater. I couldn't experience that much because there were heavy CG in that, there were heavy earthquakes, and all those kind of things. But I know that was fake, so so I was not able to enjoy that thing. So that is a con which I personally consider as a visual effects artist. There will be different views on this thing, but generally I could tell all these things.
Thanks, Manoj, for letting me interview you, and thanks for interviewing me. It's been really, really good. Yeah, if you want to check out some of my tutorials, they'll be in links below on the card on the screen. But it's been absolutely brilliant hearing from you, Manoj. Thank you very much for answering the questions for me, and thank you for interviewing me as well. It was really, really good to meet up and chat. Really, really good to kind of like share some knowledge, share some best practice, and I'm sure it'll be really helpful for everyone.